Chamber of Minerals and Energy is very disappointed with the details announced today on the carbon tax. What's been proposed is the most aggressive carbon policy both in place or being proposed in the world. And what that means for our minerals industry is that we've taken a hit on our international competitiveness. That's of deep concern to us. Further, the changes or proposed changes to the fuel tax credit scheme seems aimed front and centre at the mining industry, and that's an additional $600 million cost we will now face for our business investment. What we need to remember is that the mining industry is the major driver of the Australian economy, and we hope this is continuing into the future, and our deep concerns obviously around the carbon tax layered on top of the proposed mineral resources rent tax.
Now, do you fear that jobs
being lost? Look, what we're seeing here is any additional cost layer is going to affect obviously marginal projects in our industry, and also when we're looking at companies investing into Australia, they're going to look at this additional cost and whether Australia is now going to be the most attractive place for them to invest, as composed to our trade partners and trade competitors, more importantly, such as Brazil.
So do you believe jobs will be lost?
We don't know at this stage, but certainly on the fringes, and certainly in Queensland, I would suspect that jobs will go in the more gassy mines, the more intensive, energy-intensive mines.
Doesn't the mining industry have a responsibility, though, to pay for the pollution it's creating?
Look, I think what we need to remember is that the mining industry has already been acting quite strongly on reducing their energy footprint. Energy is a large cost base for them, and most of our members have been taking very strong action in this place. In fact, the Chamber is running a seminar towards the end of this year to showcase what technologies and what initiatives we've been taking place.
Emissions haven't been going down though, so doesn't more need to be done, and doesn't the government need to force more to be done?
Well, what we need to remember is that we need to act, we believe, aligned with global competition and global policies. Otherwise, what we're going to see is just industry being driven offshore, and what we're going to see is carbon leakage.
But someone needs to take the first step. Isn't that what Australia's doing? Someone needs to take the first step internationally.
Sure, we understand the government's position on that. However, what we need to make sure is that our industry remains competitive compared to our global competitors.
The Prime Minister said that until now, industry's been able to pollute for free. They've been able to release the emissions into the atmosphere, and now they're going to have to pay for that. What's wrong with that?
Look, the mining industry has been taking some very strong measures in reducing their carbon footprint, and we believe that action needs to be taken to reduce human-induced global climate action. However, our core concern is that we must do this aligned with other global policies. Otherwise, what we'll see is this investment go offshore and the carbon leakage go offshore as well.
The Prime Minister seems to think that this won't change attitudes. Do you think the tax will actually encourage companies to cut carbon?
Look, we question the primary motives of this policy, and we're working through the detail, and we actually think there's a lot of pain and not much gain will become from this policy.
You mentioned $600 million as the impact on the changes to the fuel tax, I think. How do you calculate that?
Well, look, the tax changes to the fuel tax credit is expected to reap about $600 million back into government revenue, and the mining industry will be overwhelming contributor to those figures.
So you're talking national or just WA?
No, that's national.
Yeah.
The MCA says they'll be launching an advertising campaign against this tax. Are you going to support that?
Look, we're reviewing that at this stage. We're not sure whether we partake in that, and we're working closely with the MCA and other state bodies in our response to this policy.
Do you think WA industry will be hit harder than other states?
Look, I think the Premier was right in saying manufacturing is going to be hit very hard, and obviously the East Coast perhaps will be hit harder by this, as well as the coal sector over in Queensland. However, I don't think we should underestimate the impact this will have on our mining industry here in WA.
The Premier also said that this really favours the East Coast and fails to look at magnetite ore and that sort of thing. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, magnetite is an emerging industry. It's important to remember that the compensation levels were set by data in 2004 to 2008, and the magnetite industry was just emerging at that stage. So certainly we have concerns around such an energy-intensive, but also very high value-add industry in WA.
Do you agree it's an Eastern-centric tax, though?
Look, I can't comment on that at this stage. We're still working through the detail.
What alternative would you suggest if you think that this isn't the way to go? What should Australia be doing?
Look, the Chamber certainly believes that global action is required on climate change, and we certainly have a preference for an emissions trading scheme. However, we believe that to ensure that we are trade competitive, we have a soft landing. that we have assistance for those trade-exposed industries to ensure we're aligned with our competitors. And when the world starts aligning, then we can ramp those changes up.
How can you expect countries like Maui and Malawi to put in ETSs? I mean, it's an absurd proposition, isn't it?
Look, what we're looking for is our major polluting and our major trading partners.
Who are you talking about there?
Well, we're talking about Brazil, India, etc.
What to put in ETS before we have one?
We're expecting. We're not opposing the introduction of an ETS. We're opposing the introduction of the most aggressive ETS, which puts us at a disadvantage to our trading competitors.
But you're saying the government should then compensate industry. Doesn't that defeat the purpose of it in the first place?
What we're trying to do again is to ensure our trade competitiveness compared to other countries, because perhaps what we'll see if we don't have a soft landing with the ETS is pushing industry offshore and pushing industry to areas where we have higher emissions.
Isn't that an empty threat though? Because resources are finite and they've put lots of millions of billions of dollars into investing here. Isn't it just an empty threat to go offshore?
No, I don't believe so. I think what we need to remember is there's a lot of small miners out there, a lot of small producers. These companies, they work very hard to get their projects up and running. They have to fund their projects, usually from international sources. And those funds and those companies have to look where they get the best bang for their dollar. And if that best bang for their dollar is overseas, that's where they might go.
So do you think it's the smaller miners that will be the biggest hit?
Well, I think they will be hit quite significantly.